I've always had a love for cars, even when I was a little kid. Of course, I didn't have no grass, so I was out there playing in the dirt, playing with my little cars and changing them around, taking the wheels off of them and putting bigger wheels on them or something a little fancier, trading with the neighbor kids. Always having that kind of stuff going on. So when I was able to actually get into the shop with my dad, it was for, of course, starting out on bicycles, messing around with them and breaking bikes, fixing bikes, and actually even having some with broken frames that we had to weld and stuff like that. And neighbor kids bringing their bikes over because we had a place to fix them, so that was part of that. And then when I was probably in about sixth grade, I think I was what, 11, 12 years old, got to change my first engine in a car. It was a 63, no, 62 Chevy Impala. It was a two-door. We pulled out the 283 and put in 327. It was a four-speed car. And that one, the only time I had help was to take the hood off. And then they sat back and let me do everything else from there because I kept telling them, man, I've been watching you guys, I can do this. And sure enough, I was able to get it out of there. They helped me, of course, when it was time to get the engine lifted up and out of the car and set down on the ground with the hoist, and then bringing the other engine over, putting the good parts onto it, and then dropping it back down in the car. And as easy as those cars were back in the day, we was able to change the motor in a day, push it in, drive it out. So that was kind of that part of it. And then I got my first car. I was 13 years old. Kind of had this thing about, was watching the Dukes of Hazzard, was always into that General Lee thing, and I wanted one of those Chargers. So I got one that was close, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to cut it up to make it into a General Lee, but we're gonna have some fun. So I fell in love with that, and I spent a lot of time, probably 2 years, putting it together. It didn't need a lot, but there was just stuff I was doing between mowing lawns to earn money to help, and helping my dad with other engine swaps and different stuff in the garage. It wasn't a shop even the size of this one now, just a little old two-car garage, and didn't have a very tall ceiling in it, and but we done a lot of stuff. There was a lot of education come out of that shop, between just what I learned and what some of my buddies learned and some of the other things that we done. Got into four-wheel drives, started lifting trucks out back on the slab because they were too big to put in the garage. And people bring stuff by, hey man, I broke this, well, let's see what we can do. So we'd go back and modify it, make it better, go back out and try it again. So learned to do a little bit of welding throughout the whole process, and just a lot of different little things. Things that you probably wouldn't do nowadays with vehicles. Everybody buys a vehicle. Back then we had to build it before we could drive it. But it gave you a different appreciation for what was going on with vehicles at that time. So we were okay with that. Just a lot of it, of getting into the shop stuff, was I learned from my dad, some of his friends that used to come over, and just being out and about around. I was like the only child, so there was really no other kids to play with. Well, there was some in the neighborhood, but no siblings. So I had kind of more of a chance to be more focused, to hang around, find out what was going on, learn from these guys, see some of the tips, the ideas, and then when I got to Votech to do that kind of stuff, well, it was kind of boring because a lot of it I kind of already knew, but I wanted that certificate so I could have that little degree in that part of it. So a lot of it was just passed on. My dad, he was a Depression era kid, so he learned from a lot of the elders around the way, and I thought, well, what a great trade to be able to pass that stuff on to my kids, so that when they go to a shop, they're not getting taken advantage of, or they understand more about what's going on with their vehicle, or if it's something they can fix themselves, you know. Kind of like the father-son project we started, and soon to be a father-daughter project coming up. Well, those are some of the things. That's what I enjoy doing more now than trying to do something for a quick buck, because it's like I said, there's really no money in it, and you just I mean, I don't mean that as far as discouraging somebody from wanting to start a shop, but for me, at my age, no, I'm not going to start a shop for that. I might have a shop for customization, modification, stuff like that, but I want to be able to do it at my pace. I don't want to be able to have to meet corporate deadlines because of different things like that, and just, you know, we get done with it, we present it, we have fun with it, we move on, next project. Stuff like that. Maybe mentor some more people along the way and do some things like that, to where, you know, some other people can learn some trades, learn some things out of some of that stuff and pursue it, because there's so many facets to the automotive part of it. You know, you've got, of course, the mechanical's the biggest part. If it don't run, it doesn't work, it's no good. But, you know, you got your cosmetic parts, you've got your paint, your body, you got your interior, you know, there's the wiring, the electronics, all the different aspects of a car, and the history goes so deep with it. So that's kind of my take on it. So it's more of a hobby thing now, as opposed to trying to do it for a job. I had my own shop for a while and tried to do it for a living, but it just wasn't enough money in it at the time. Some of the car lots I was doing stuff for, they were having low sales and just different stuff. And then I probably wasn't young enough to just stay focused with going through all the tough times, even though I worked through them, you know, to try to do something, but it just wasn't quite what I thought I was going to get into, even though I had a love for it. So now it's just a hobby. I mean, there's no way I can keep up with all the big shops and all the guys now. You know, it's like you entry level into some of these shops, you got to have probably $20,000 worth of tools to get started. The time stuff with it, you know, you're trying to do time rates and different stuff like that. It makes it harder to try to keep all that going, you know, with time labor guides and stuff like that, you know. And unless you get the training on all the new stuff, everything now, it's not, you don't repair it, it's doing a remove and replace, you know. Where before, when we would pull something off of a car, we would fix that item and then put it back on the car. Now you pull it off, you throw it away, you know. So that changes the scope of it. But, you know, I like the older vehicles. That's you know, stuff from the 70s all the way on down, older, you know. But we do a little bit of everything, as far as I like to put some of the new flavor into the old vehicles and, you know, have a drivability. Looking to do a few resto mods, stuff like that. So doing things with wheels, I guess I never really got away from that part of it. So after I had my shop, I went into building school buses for a little while, got out of that, went into a big manufacturing plant, turned around, got laid off from there. So then early 2000s, I got into scooter repair, working on those kinds of things. And of course, I was still playing around with all my junk stuff, hobbies, taking trash, turning it into something. But the main part of that is I kind of wanted to be able to help some people. My dad wound up being in a wheelchair, so, you know, I'm thinking, well, if I can help people just kind of based on my own personal experience, I'm gonna try to do some of that. So got into the repair part of it, and then just about 3.5 years ago, I got the opportunity to be able to help sit down with the therapist and the doctors, prescribe people this type of equipment. So if they needed something to help with their mobility, you know, then I was the guy that was helping write that stuff up, instead of the guy trying to help them sit there and repair it when it's broke, you know. So that was my next evolution with that part of it. So it's kind of where that ended up, and that's what I do now.